In warfare, a theater is an area or a place in which important military events occur or are progressing. A theater can include the entirety of the air, space, land and sea area that may potentially become involved in war operations. Theater of war. In his book on war, Karl von Clausewitz defines the term as one that denotes properly such a portion of the space over which war prevails as has its boundaries protected, and thus possesses a kind of independence. This protection may consist in fortresses, or important natural obstacles presented by the country, or even in its being separated by considerable distance from the rest of the space embraced in the war. Such a portion is not a mere piece of the whole, but a small whole complete in itself, and consequently it is more or less in such a condition that changes which take place at other points in the seat of war have only an indirect and no direct influence upon it. To give an adequate idea of this, we may suppose that on this portion an advance is made, whilst in another quarter a retreat is taking place, or that upon the one an army is acting defensively, whilst an offensive is being carried on upon the other. Such a clearly defined idea as this is not capable of universal application. It is here used merely to indicate the line of distinction. Theater of operations. Theater of operations is a sub-area within a theater of war. The boundary of it is defined by the commander who is orchestrating or providing support for specific combat operations within the two. Theater of operations are divided into strategic directions or military regions depending whether it's a war or peacetime. The United States Armed Forces split into unified combatant commands that are assigned to a particular theater of military operations. Strategic direction is a group of armies also known as task forces or battle groups. Also, in the U.S. Armed Forces the term of strategic is often associated with missile command, dropping word missile out of use, such as the United States Strategic Command. However, it is an important strategic command that could be effectively deployed in any theater of military operations. A strategic commander direction in general essence would combine a number of tactical military formations or operational command. In modern military, a strategic command is better known as a combat command that may be a combination of army groups. Soviet and Russian armed forces. For example, a large geographic subdivision used by the Soviet and Russian armed forces to classify the continental geographic territories with the bordering maritime areas, islands, adjacent coasts and airspace. The division of large continental and maritime areas assists in determining the limits within which the plans for operation of strategic military groups of forces are developed, allowing conduct of military operations on specific significant strategic directions known as fronts, which were named in accordance to their theater of operations. For example, Southwestern Front, First Ukrainian Front, Northern Front. In a peacetime, due to loss of a strategic direction, fronts were transformed into military regions responsible for an assigned section of operations. The Russian term is Theater Действий, abbreviated TVD. United States. The term theater of operations was defined in the field manuals as the land and sea areas to be invaded or defended, including areas necessarily for administrative activities incident to the military operations. In accordance with the experience of World War I, it was usually conceived of as a large land mass over which continuous operations would take place and was divided into two chief areas: the combat zone, or the area of active fighting, and the communications zone, or area required for administration of the theater. As the armies advanced, both these zones and the areas into which they were divided would shift forward to new geographic areas of control.